Hello lads and lasses and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going through my match review of yesterday's Newcastle versus Brentford game, and it was an alright game. We'll get into that in a second though. Before that, do have something to mention. I have started writing over at Newcastle Tunes. I'm now a contributor there. I've got 2 article thingies up if you want to go have a read. One of them was the 3 reasons, the 3 players that helped us to that win against Brentford. The other is a predicted lineup for Brentford. I will have one out either later today or early tomorrow on a predicted AC Milan lineup. So if you want to go there and get an early peek at what is my predictions, then get yourself away. I'll be posting on there every so often. Just another form of this, but in writing form. Something I'm trying out. And I'm able to do it over at Newcastle Tunes. So that will be linked in the description below if that is something you want to check out. If not, don't worry. Make sure you subscribe here and you can get all pretty much the same content. Just you have to listen to us instead. So, you know, swings and roundabouts, I guess. Let's get into this review though. So we played Brentford yesterday. What a weird game it was. It could have went either way. It could have went to Brentford. It could have stayed a draw. It definitely and did go to us. I did, even watching that game, I thought it was going to end in a draw. But let's get into some of the reasons why. We had incredibly slow build-up. I mentioned this in the article. You know, just don't mean to brag or anything. I mentioned this in my latest article that Brentford had continuously 10 men behind the ball. They knew when to shift and they knew where they needed shifting to when the ball was played from one side to the other. It was awful to try and break down that side. And in a way, we managed to do it. But our slow build-up didn't help at all. I think it's one of the times where the system we play disadvantages us a little. We had a lot of possession though, which was quite nice to see for a change. Especially in that first half, I feel like we held the ball a lot more. Dan Burn looks like quite the liability still at left back going forward. That was an awful watch. He genuinely, he's honestly, giraffe on skates. Nothing's ever fit more. I say it every single time. He did a job though. I'll give him that. He did all right. He didn't have his worst ever game. I don't think he played fantastically. But it was an interesting sight to see. 90 minutes of Dan Burn getting up the field and then out of position on the counter, and then even when he was back, there was this one time in the second half where he sprinted from left back to where the ball was on the right hand side of the pitch in the corner nearest me in the Milburn stand, and made the tackle. Well done him for doing that, because if he didn't, I would have punched him in the face. Well, I wouldn't do that. That would mean jail time. I'm not about that. Anyways, Miggy is still incredibly one-footed. For the little time he was on, he still managed to find a way to get on the ball and only use his left foot. Anthony Gordon played absolutely outstanding. He showed that he can go into that right-hand side. He can do what he does on the left but on the right, but also that he can take over Miggy in being the player with the ball, being the player without the ball. He offers a lot more. Even his defensive work is fantastic. I would say his defensive work is a lot better than what Miggy's is. Hopefully he keeps that sort of position going forward, because he played very, very well yesterday, and I think it's the main reason why we won. We were lucky to get the win, as I said. The penalty was interesting. It definitely was a penalty. There's no arguing against it. I definitely think it was a penalty. Mark Flecken just takes Gordon out. He takes Gordon out because it's beautiful from Gordon to get to that ball first. So that the only option there is to take him out. So we were very lucky to get in that position. That other handball on Mbuemo definitely wasn't a handball. Wilson's first goal, however, definitely should have been a goal. There was no way that is a foul. That was atrocious. Our defence held up very, very well. I liked what we had with Shaw and Botman. Botman came back into the side, showed why we missed him. Brentford defensively was one of the most solid teams, and officiating was very questionable at times. with fouls being given one way but not the other, vice versa. It was annoying. Is Wilson's goal a prime example of that? There was a couple times where players were being held, Newcastle players were being held, nothing was given. A Brentford player was slightly held, that was given straight away. Those sorts of things. I've also noticed that we've kind of just given up on coaches in the box, because there was definitely 2 coaches in the box, and at nearly all times, for Newcastle at least, there was a lot of the time that both managers were out the box. So something I thought we were clamping down on before the season, we're definitely not. So nice. Now though, we've got a little special segment before we get into the beloved BS review. We have a girlfriend review because she went to the game yesterday. It's her first game this season. Not her first game ever. I don't know how many she's been to before that. With me, she's been to one other game. Yeah, first one this season. I've got a review down here. So, I haven't read this yet either. I've not read any of the reviews yet. So if they're awful, do not blame me. I didn't write any of these. Okay, so Dan Burn is lanky. He wasn't very good, just throwing himself like Slenderman down the pitch. 2 out of 10. Very harsh, but fair enough. I would say more on the attack, I would agree. Defensively, I think he could have done better, but he was alright. Gordon played really well. I thought he was fast and on it with the ball. Brentford defence worked really well. I don't know, they all knew where they were supposed to be, which is something I brought up, so that's quite good, that. Limited football knowledge, ball knowledge isn't fantastic, but that is a sign of football greatness. Callum Wilson slayed. I don't even think he slayed. He got lucky to get the penalty. The penalty was really good, but he got lucky to get the penalty in the first place. He was unlucky for the goal he did actually score to be ruled out. But apart from that, Callum Wilson didn't do a lot in that game. Well, not for me anyways. I don't think he did lots. Towards the end of the second half, he did a lot more than he was doing. Still not a lot though. The VAR not handball was clearly a handball. I watched it with my literal eyes. I watched the replay and had to explain that it definitely wasn't a handball. So you just know now that it wasn't a handball, but there are going to be some people who still think that is a handball, which definitely was not. Brentford players took the P when they had to throw the ball back in and corners and stuff. They were so slow, my nana could have bum shuffled faster than that. Wow, this really creative. I could only wish to have standards of writing like this. Jeez. Wilson starting was a good idea, and Eddie is the king. That is the girlfriend review. Round of applause. Just me? Fair enough. I don't know why I expected there. So all very valid points, to be fair. Most of them are correct as well, so that's surprising. The BS review now, the most anticipated part of every video. We'll get on to Callum's first, as Abby is always a delight, isn't she? So, we start with the match officiating was awful. Clear fouls not being given, and fouls being given that when shouldn't be. Happened all game long, was awful. We're probably going to get an apology on that weird referee show that I have now for some reason, which is a bit silly. And the when they're trying to discuss a decision, they're all talking over each other. It sounds like a pro club's chat. I am surprised there's no abuse being hurled to the defensive midfielder. After watching the highlights, Wilson's goal should have stood, as keeper was too soft on contact, and Bremer handball was correct decision, not a penalty, as it hit his head first. It only hits his hand because of the way he's fallen, which is why I say it's not a penalty. So I agree with that. Midfield was sloppy on the ball for too long. I think the midfield was a lot better than it has been in recent times. I think Sean Longstaff coming at this side gave it a bit more of a defensive shape. I think Longstaff's defending is a lot better than what Tonali's shown so far. Tonali's just much better going forward. Bruno wasn't awful. He played all right. But again, that's only because he was freed up, because Sean Longstaff doesn't really do a lot. But yes. Anyways. Gordon showed he can play it just as well on the right as the left. Opens up more possibilities going forward for tactical decisions, which means we are probably definitely going to see something different in the Champions League. I don't know who's going to start that game. I'm going to have to good think before I write it up and record the video. But having Gordon on that right hand side and Barnes on that left, they solidified themselves as should be starters at the winger position. They both played really well. I thought Gordon having the better game. Where was I? I was here. Right. There were times in the match where we appeared to be afraid to shoot. Can't keep doing that going forward, as need to take our chances in scrappy games like this. Definitely agree with that. We could have won this game by more even if we just floated more crosses in. There were times where Harvey Barnes, Dan Burn, Elliot Anderson had the ball on the left hand side, and we'd just be trying to work it into the middle, work it into the box instead of just whacking a cross in. That's all we needed to do at times. Put a cross in, see if we can get someone on the ball. Wilson's quite good in the air for his height. See if we can get a Wilson head on it. See if Barnes or Gordon can get it at the back post. Bob's your uncle, you've got a goal. We're winning more than 1-0. We're winning comfortably. These are the sort of things we need to improve on. But I'll take this win for now, even if it should have been a draw. Clear Isaac will be starting the Champions League match since he was rested for this game. And I think the same with Tonali, which was brought up. He was rested for the entire game. But he was also on the bench, which I thought was the most interesting thing because he's meant to be injured. So we could have given that bench space to Lewis Miley, who I think might possibly be making a Champions League debut. And I don't think we can play a lot of these players two games in a row with the 3-day gap, with how intense Eddie Howe plays. Some changes are going to have to be made. Tonali coming in is definitely going to be one of them. Isak's definitely going to be one of them. And I think Lewis Miley's going to be the other change in midfield. Now let's get on to Abby's review. The ref was a W anchor again, of course. When is he not? This woman does not like referees. Very anti-referee is what I'm noticing. First half was so long. Defense was solid. Held up well. Miggy does only have 1 foot. That's probably meant to say actually, but she refused to spell words properly. Gordon was a solid player. I believe second pen should have been a pen. Again, disagree. Was just lucky with a win altogether. Look at that. Lovely stuff. So that is all 4 reviews today. Wow. Fantastic. Man of the match, though. I can give it myself. I actually need to add it to a counter. I'm making a counter on... okay, don't show my messages. Making a counter for the end of the season. We might do some sort of end of the season awards. Mine goes to Anthony Gordon. I think he was the difference maker yesterday. Without him, we don't get that pen. His work on the right showed that he is a better alternative to Miggy. Overall performance was just fantastic. Offensively, defensively, all over the pitch. And then he moved on to the left later on. Absolutely beautiful stuff. Interesting to see we only made 1 change as well. Just remembering. But I guess that partly due to the Champions League game, but it probably does mean we're not going to see a lot of the players that played yesterday in the Champions League game, which an interesting one. Anyways, that is all I have for you today. As I say, the link to those 2 Newcastle Toon where our post articles will be in the description. And if you are still around right at this very moment and are not already, do think about hitting that subscribe button. We are still trying to hit 200 before the end of the year. We've got about 2.5 months to do that. 3.5 months. Is it? October, November, 3.5 months. I'm telling lies. You've got 3.5 months to do that. So if you want to help out there, hit that subscribe button while you're down there, hit that like button, all that good stuff. And that will be all from me today. I will be back tomorrow for my predicted AC Milan lineup. If you want to see a sneak peek at that, do head over to that blog. Keep an eye on it. There will be one either today or tomorrow morning. Lovely stuff. I'll see you in the next one. In a bit, pal.